All right, so I've been using Garmin Pilot now for a couple months, and I feel like it's time to really get down to the nitty gritty and make a decision as to what is going on and kind of let everybody know where I'm at as far as the two programs. I'm comparing Foreflight, the latest version of Foreflight as of June 9th, 2020, and the latest version of Garmin Pilot. So I have been exclusively using Garmin Pilot for the last 2 or 3 months. In fact, I let my Foreflight subscription expire. One of my complaints with Foreflight, for example, is they keep coming out with these new fancy little additions to their software, and I have at the time I was paying almost $500 a year. Now I did have Jeppesen, which I have canceled. I've gone back to using the government charts, but I had Jeppesen, and then I had the $200 version of Foreflight in order to have synthetic vision and some of the IFR stuff that I needed. In comparison, direct comparison, Garmin Pilot with all of those features minus the Jeppesen is like $150 a year. And they actually, I believe, give you synthetic vision even on the $79 version. So Foreflight is a good bit more expensive than Garmin Pilot. Not a good bit, but it is more expensive. However, I'm gonna go through some of this stuff now to kind of show what's where I'm at. But Garmin Pilot is just not reliable. I've had so many problems with Garmin Pilot, and I'm going to show some of the things now. But it's gotten to the point where I'm not willing to deal with it anymore. I was contacted by Garmin Pilot to work with them a little bit on some of the issues that I was having, but the responsiveness is just it doesn't exist. I'll send an email and it'll be a month before I get a reply back, and none of the things that I'm telling them I'm having a problem with, very few of them are actually being addressed. Now they may be doing it in the background, they say they are, but some of the things just don't make any sense why it's taken this long to get fixed. So we'll go through some of the basic things first, and then we'll get into more of the complicated things. So one of the things that let me clear all this stuff. One of the things that I really have a problem with is I fly to airports all the time and have to rent a car. And so I'll fly to the airport, rent the car, and then go to the hotel, and then at some point I need to get back to the hotel. Well, something that's so basic, and it blows my mind that they don't have this in here, is that when you go over here to the FBOs in the airport, first off, it's not very simple to use this. And second of all, none of these things, if I go in here, so let's go to the main airport here, they've got the phone number, they got the Unicom frequency, but you'll notice there is absolutely no information here as to what the address of the FBO is. So you can't get back to the FBO. There is literally nothing in here to give you the address. That is such a simple thing. And in Foreflight, when not only do I have the address, but if I'm pulling it up on my phone, I can click on the address and it takes me to the map. So, it's just little things like this added all up, just at the end of the day, just kind of gets old. So if we go back over here to the map, so let's plan a route. We're going to do this in Foreflight and in Garmin Pilot so you can kind of go along. So I'm going to click on the flight plan up here, and they've broken this down, and I can come up here and do it like I do in Foreflight. So I just say 62 Golf Alpha to KOPN and hit enter, and then it throws everything in here. And typically that's the quickest way to do this, because doing it in the thing here, you have to click on the top thing, put in your origin, then you got to go down to the bottom, put in your destination, then you go to the middle and you start putting in all your waypoints and stuff. It's not very a very smooth way to do this. So by comparison, if I come over here to Foreflight, I just click up here, 62 Golf Alpha to KOPN, and I'm done. So it's just, it's quicker to do your flight planning and stuff inside of Foreflight. Now I'm going to turn off the sectional, so we're comparing map to map. So right now I've got this in Foreflight. If I come over here, we'll click up here and close that, and then we have this in Garmin Pilot. Now Garmin Pilot, their map is nicer looking. It's got, better colors and stuff. But I'll tell you, in the sunlight, it's very hard to see Garmin Pilot compared to this in Foreflight. Foreflight's a lot easier to deal with and work with. You'll also notice there's not as much busy going on here. In Foreflight, I actually have the ability to turn off certain things, so I can turn on these, or just with a click I can turn off some of the things that I'm not using because I'm VFR today, for example. So now I'm going to Thomaston, and let's add a IFR approach into Thomaston. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on Flight Plan. We're going to come up here to Procedures. We're going to go over here to Approach. We're going to shoot the ILS 30. It brings up the chart, and then I can look at the chart and figure out where I'm going to enter. So we're going to say we're going to enter at OP. So, and it gives me my approach, so you can see it here on the chart, and I'm just going to tell it to add to the route. And so now automatically it brings up the chart. It shows me where my path is, where I'm going to be entering it, and it gives me the flight, the course on the laid out on top of the map. So let's real quick do the same thing over here. So right now Garmin Pilot has this thing about whether I'm flight planning or whether I'm actually flying, which to me I don't really understand. It's just another thing for me to have to deal with. But you'll notice the route isn't quite as clear as to what we're doing. The map is a little bit busier, but the airports and stuff are larger, so I can kind of see where everything is. I've already covered the emergency procedures and stuff. I think Garmin Pilot is hands and above better than Foreflight when it comes to emergencies. I wish Foreflight would add another button over there to deal with that. But in any case, it is what it is. So I'm going to go and do the same thing that we just did in Garmin Pilot. So we're going to open up the flight plan. I'm going to come down here. You'll see the destination is KOPN. There's a procedure button right above it. So I'm going to hit procedures. I'm going to select approach. I'm going to tell it to select on map so that I can kind of see what I'm looking at. I'm going to select the ILS. Now, you'll notice this is a little bit busier than what we had in Foreflight, and I'm going to show you why here in a second. So I'm going to go ahead, and I want to go into this approach via the OP, which is your final approach fix, or your initial approach fix. This, for some reason, is calling that fix Yates instead of OP, even though it's showing me OP on the map. So it's a little confusing looking at this as to what exactly is going on. But I'm going to pick the same procedures that we had a minute ago, and so it gives me kind of a similar picture, and I'm going to tell it to load the approach. So we're going to hit load. And so now you'll notice that KOPN, which is our destination, has now, instead of it being the destination, it has moved up into en route, and our approach has become the destination. It's kind of confusing as to why they do that. But I'm going to go ahead and close this, and you'll notice a couple things. You'll notice that we have our procedure here. You've got the airport, but it didn't take the information. It didn't change the procedure to going straight toward the Yates is what it called it. It does have the procedure turn here, but it actually shows us going into Thomaston still, making a turn, and then going to our initial approach fix. So that's not really the way you would fly this approach. The other thing that is extremely irritating here, and I don't understand why they even have it, I don't know who in the world thought this was a good idea, but they already have the missed approach procedure on here. So you'll notice that there's that 1,500 foot that's just to the left northeast of Thomaston there. That's the procedure turn for a missed approach, and they're putting it on the map along with the approach itself. So it gets extremely cluttered here as to what it is that I'm doing when I'm shooting this approach. You'll also notice that the chart is not up here on the plate. And so in order to get the chart up here, the quickest way that I've found to do this is I have to go up here and click on Thomaston. And I'm trying to remember exactly how you do this. Let's see, we go to Thomaston, we hit airport, and then we can come over here to procedures, and then we can tell it initial approach for here on ILS. So it doesn't even know that I'm currently loaded on an approach. I've got to go back through here and pick everything, and then that will throw the plate onto the map, similar to the way Foreflight has it. But the difference is look at all of the busyness going on in here for how to fly this approach. Now, I will tell you that on a few occasions, I have had my course that I'm flying not line up with the chart. So it has put this chart, now I think they may have fixed this, but there have been situations where this has just been buggy and hasn't lined up what I'm trying to do with the plate. Now, if I open up this flight plan, you'll notice down here in the bottom left-hand side, it says mode is planning. And that is one of the reasons that, so I'm going to click it and change it into actual navigation. And now you'll notice that I've got the lines more similar to what Foreflight has, but I still don't have my course going directly to the procedure turn. I'm still going to the airport and then flying outbound. So it's the whole thing is just buggy. I don't understand why it does all of this stuff. I also have an XM weather device that I've got in the airplane. In fact, with Garmin Pilot, they forced me to actually have to purchase a $600 GDL 51 or whatever the heck they call it, in order to get the XM weather. They don't use anything but their own device, and so I had to buy this Garmin device to get my weather. Well, the problem with that is the device sucks. 9 times out of 10, it won't have a signal if I turn a certain direction in the airplane, because in the Lockheed especially, the window is pretty straight. And so I've gone into the airplane and hard mounted this thing up in the window because it doesn't come with an external antenna, because again, Garmin has to have their own connectors and you can't use any other device to be able to connect in for an antenna. So I ended up having to get all this stuff extra, and now I'm fixing to just throw it all away because I can't use it. It's just, the other day I was flying through thunderstorms and around thunderstorms, and the damn thing just quit working right in the middle of me flying because I happened to turn a direction that it didn't have a good signal. And I literally have it up in the window. So, I'm getting kind of tired of all this stuff. The other thing, about Garmin Pilot, and again, if we go over here to Foreflight, and this is another good example. Foreflight hunts for the best device for it to receive weather data, or not weather data, but any data. And so if I go from an internet connection and I get in the airplane and start flying the airplane, it knows that it's lost the internet connection, and it will switch over to using ADS-B. If it loses ADS-B, it'll go to XM. Actually, it's the opposite. It'll go to XM if it can find XM. It'll go to ADS-B if it can't get XM. it is looking to try to help me while I'm flying the airplane. Where Garmin Pilot, if we go back over here and look at Garmin Pilot, they have these layers down here. So I have to go down here to radar. Well, no, go to overlays, and you'll see radar. It says internet based. Well, in order to get all of this stuff, and when I'm in the airplane, I get a lot more options. But in order to get the thing to display what it is that you want to look at, what will happen is if I'm on internet and I get in the airplane and start flying, the entire map grays out, and I get a message right across the middle of the screen saying no internet weather data available. And so then I have to go down and I have to pick XM weather. Well, then I don't have a connection to XM because the stupid thing doesn't work. And so my whole screen is grayed out, and across the middle of the screen it says no satellite weather data available. And so I have to turn it off, because while I'm taking off and stuff, I don't want to have the screen grayed out. And so I turn off the weather data. Well, then I got to remember to turn it back on once I maybe have a signal that I can receive. And it's just, there's just so much manual labor involved in using Garmin Pilot compared to Foreflight that it's obnoxious. I mean, it's unnecessary. So, you know, at the end of the day, I just want to fly the airplane and use the program to get where I'm going and to have the information available. And Garmin Pilot is just beating me up trying to keep all this stuff square. So I'm going to go up here, one more thing. I want to go up here to airport information. So we're on the airport information screen. You can see here that I have the elevation of the airport, the pattern altitude, a magnetic variation, sunrise, sunset, time, and the best runway currently to use. If I want any other information, because, you know, maybe a frequency would be an important thing to know, I've got to go down here to frequencies, and then I have to go down here to these little bitty grayed out. They've bolded the what it is, and they got the frequency in a light gray. And I'm telling you right now, on an iPad mini in the cockpit with the sun shining, you can't read this crap. I mean, it is terrible to try to navigate this and figure out exactly what's going on. And then if I want runways, I go down here to runways, and it gives me information about the runways. If I want FBOs, I got to go down here, fuel prices. So it's not an intuitive way to do this. If I go back as a comparison over here to Foreflight, now here's a downside to Foreflight, is you'll notice that Thomaston is actually my destination. If I go down here to airports in Foreflight, my flight plan is not available over here. I have favorites, I have recents, and I have browse. But I do not have my current flight plan. So in order for me to quickly get to an airport that is in my flight plan, I have to go in and favorite that airport first, because otherwise I can't get to the stupid thing. So Foreflight is not perfect, but I can come in here and click on KOPN, and then I can come over here, and this gives me some basic information, and then I can go to full screen, and it'll actually pull up KOPN over here. Now, you'll notice a big difference between the two. Right now, I don't have to go to anything on the airport data to be able to get to what I really need. I have the current weather information. And you'll notice the exact opposite on the labels. The things that I need to know are bolded, and the labels are lighter. So it's a lot easier to read when you're in the airplane and trying to navigate what's going on. And so right here, I've got the Unicom frequency, CTAF, I got AWAS, I've got the runway information, the fuel that's available there, instrument procedures that are available. So every single thing that I need to know about this airport is all right there on that one screen. I don't have to go hunting for it. You'll also notice if I go down here to procedure, for example, we've got all of our procedures. If I go to weather, I've got my weather info. I've got my info. If I go up here to the top and click on FBO, I got a much cleaner view of the FBO information. If I click on it and we go over here, it flips over and gives me the address to the place, fees, comments, fuel prices, You know, all of the information that I need to know about this airport is all right here, easily available and ready to rock and roll. So, you know, it's just trying to, Garmin Pilot is not a bad program. It's probably, I would say that it's probably the second best application out there that you can use on an iPad for navigating. And it is available on Android as well, although the Android version isn't up to date as much as the iOS version is, but they're close. But you know, just on the day-to-day operations of using this, and there's a lot of other things that I could go into that are a pain with the Garmin Pilot. And again, Foreflight is not perfect. They've got plenty of things that they could be doing instead of working on some of the crazy stuff that they are adding. But you know, it's a much easier, much better application in my opinion. And I really did give this a fair shake. I literally cut Foreflight off. I have not touched it for 3 months, but I promise you, every single time I open up Garmin Pilot, I'm fighting the urge to switch back over to Foreflight. And you would think after 3 months of using nothing but Garmin Pilot that I would at least be comfortable with using it, and I'm just not. And worse, I don't trust it because it's just little things that have just not worked on it that really ought to be the focus of the application. And it's just gotten where it is. So I am officially switching back over to Foreflight, and maybe in another year I'll come back and see if they've added addresses to FBOs.